They told you AI was going to save you money, that it would replace expensive jobs with something cheap, fast, and tireless. And for a while, that story worked. Companies believed it. They fired people because of it. But right now, in the middle of 2026, something strange is happening inside the biggest companies in America. The AI bill has gotten bigger than the payroll it replaced. Listen closely to this. Microsoft told its own engineers to stop using certain AI coding tools. Uber burned through an entire year of AI budget in 4 months. And companies that laid off workers last year, some of them are quietly calling those same people back. Not because AI failed, because the math changed. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why that happened, what it means for your job, your business, and the next 12 months of this race. And more importantly, you'll understand what to actually do about it, starting today. Let's go back to the moment everything changed for the rest of us. Late 2022. A company called OpenAI released something called ChatGPT. Within days, it wasn't just tech people talking about it, it was your uncle, your coworker, your kid's teacher. A machine that could write, code, brainstorm, and explain almost anything in seconds in plain language. And here's the thing worth remembering, especially now, that moment was genuinely exciting. This wasn't hype for the sake of hype. For the first time, a tool could sit next to almost any job on the planet and make it faster. Writers used it to draft. Programmers used it to ship code in a fraction of the time. Designers used it to generate concepts they never would have had the hours to explore. AI in that first wave felt like electricity must have felt in a house that had only ever known candles. So companies did what companies do. They leaned in, hard. By 2023, adoption wasn't just encouraged inside major corporations, it was mandated. Use the tools, learn the tools, prove you're using the tools. And on paper, the case was irresistible. Internal estimates being passed around boardrooms suggested a single AI system could do the work of 10 people at a fraction of the price of even one salary. That's not a small promise. That's the kind of promise that rewrites an entire company's 5-year plan overnight. So here's where the story gets heavier. And I want to be honest with you about it because pretending otherwise would be a disservice. As companies restructured around this new capability, jobs disappeared. Not in one industry, in almost all of them. Technology companies cut deep. Meta eliminated 8,000 positions. Oracle announced 21,000 cuts. Smaller, fast-moving companies followed the same playbook. Wix cut roughly a fifth of its people. By mid-2026, tracking firms had counted more than 115,000 tech layoffs across over 150 companies in that year alone. In a single month, May 2026, AI-related job cuts made up nearly 40% of all layoffs announced in the United States, the highest share ever recorded. And it wasn't only tech. Fast food chains, call centers, retail operations, logistics companies, all of them started running the same experiment: replace the payroll with the platform. If you were one of the people who got that call or that email, I'm not going to pretend a chart about efficiency makes it hurt any less. That part of the story is real, and it matters. But stay with me, because what happened next is the part almost nobody expected, and it changes how this whole story ends. Now, here's something I want you to sit with, because it's the detail almost nobody reported at the time. Researchers at MIT looked closely at all of this restructuring, role by role, task by task, and they found that full AI automation was actually economically sound in only about 23% of the jobs it was being used to replace. Read that number again, 23%. Which means in roughly 3 out of every 4 cases, companies weren't making a careful, data-backed decision. They were making a confident guess based on a promise, under pressure to move fast, because their competitors were moving fast too. That's not a story about AI failing. AI, the technology itself, was doing exactly what it was built to do. This is a story about how fast an entire economy can move on an assumption before anyone stops to check the math. And the math, as we're about to see, was about to get very complicated, because underneath every one of those decisions was a number nobody outside the industry was paying attention to: the token. If you've never heard that word used this way before, stick with me, because this is where the whole story turns. But first, if this kind of breakdown is useful to you, do me a favor. Hit like, subscribe, and come back tomorrow because we cover this space every single day, and you don't want to miss what's coming in the back half of this year. All right, let's talk about tokens and about the strange new status symbol that quietly reshaped how companies spend money on AI.
Here's a word you've probably heard 100 times without ever really knowing what it means: a token. Think of it as a small chunk of text, roughly 3/4 of a word. Every time you ask an AI system a question, every time it writes an email, generates an image, or writes a line of code, it converts that request into tokens, processes them, and charges for both what you send in and what it sends back. 750 words is roughly 1,000 tokens. Simple enough for a single email. Now stretch that across an entire company. Thousands of employees, each running dozens of AI requests a day. Multiply that for video generation, image generation, and AI agents running in the background around the clock. Suddenly, a simple unit of measurement becomes the biggest line item on the technology budget. Here's where human nature walked into the story. Companies needed a way to know whether employees were actually adopting these new tools they just told everyone to use. So they started tracking AI usage. And that's where the first real mistake crept in, quietly. What got measured was usage, not the outcome, not whether the work actually got better, faster, or cheaper because of it. Once usage itself becomes the thing being watched, using AI more starts to look good on its own, whether or not it's actually moving the real goal forward. Across plenty of teams, leaning on AI for everything became the safer choice, career-wise, even when the task in front of someone didn't really call for it. There's a moment from around that time that captures it well. At one company, leadership reportedly told a highly paid engineer that his AI usage for the year needed to reach $250,000 in tokens, or that would be treated as a problem. Using AI heavily wasn't a warning sign anymore. Barely using it was. And it wasn't just internal pressure. Publicly, some of the most influential voices in the industry, including leadership at NVIDIA, one of the companies benefiting most from all this usage, encouraged developers to lean on AI more. More usage looked like more demand, and a stronger story for investors. This got a nickname later on: token maxing. Nothing as dramatic as a competition or a trophy, just a quiet, steady preference spreading across companies for using AI more rather than less, even in moments when more wasn't actually necessary. I want to pause here because it would be easy to hear this and think the technology is the problem. It isn't. A calculator doesn't cause a bad budget. What you're watching is a very old human pattern: measure activity instead of the goal, and people optimize for the activity. AI just happened to be the fastest, shiniest activity available in 2026. And that carelessness came with a real bill attached. A meaningful share of that usage wasn't tied to outcomes. It was usage for the sake of being seen using it. Companies that let it grow unchecked paid for activity that never turned into real value. Not because the technology let them down, but because most companies in 2026 are still learning how to use AI efficiently enough to reach the goals they bought it for. So when executives pointed to soaring usage as proof of unstoppable demand, some of that number wasn't customers. It was a company still finding its footing, dressed up as growth. And at the exact same moment this was happening, a second problem was building underneath the entire industry, one that had nothing to do with human behavior and everything to do with physical hardware. According to Bloomberg, nearly half of all data center construction projects planned for 2026 in the United States were delayed or canceled outright. Half. The specialized components needed to build these facilities, the chips, cooling systems, and power infrastructure, simply weren't available fast enough to keep up with how quickly AI companies were trying to expand. So picture the full shape of this moment. Demand for AI infrastructure was already running far ahead of what the industry could physically build, and part of that demand was inflated by usage never tied back to outcomes. Two forces pulling the same direction: less supply, inflated demand. And when supply shrinks while demand, real or exaggerated, keeps climbing, there's only one place that pressure can go: price. Which brings us to the number that broke the story wide open. The number that turned a clever piece of technology into the most expensive line item some companies had ever seen. According to Bloomberg, the average price of tokens across major AI models more than doubled in less than half a year. In December of 2025, that average sat around $1.01 per million tokens. By May of 2026, it had climbed to $2.12 per million. Now, on its own, that sounds tiny, a little more than $1 of difference, almost forgettable. Except nobody buys a million tokens. Big companies buy billions of them every single day. Let's do simple math together. The same math finance teams were doing in a panic. Say employees at a company use around $200 worth of tokens a week. Over 50 working weeks, that's $10,000 a year per employee. A company with 40,000 employees is looking at $400 million a year. A company with 90,000 employees is looking at closer to $900 million. And that's before the price per token even doubled. AT&T reportedly was processing close to 8 billion tokens a day. Meta in a single month ran through an estimated 60 trillion tokens, worth somewhere around $900 million at blended market rates. These aren't hypothetical numbers on the slide. These are real invoices landing on real finance desks. For Anthropic and OpenAI, the two companies sitting at the center of this boom, that demand has been extraordinary for business. Anthropic's revenue is on track to nearly triple in 2026, with some estimates now putting its annualized revenue approaching $50 billion. If you're one of the people running those companies, this looks like the best year of your life. But if you're the finance department paying that bill, it looks like something else entirely. A Goldman Sachs research note put it in blunt terms. Companies are overrunning their original inference budgets, not by a little, but by orders of magnitude. Some software companies are now spending roughly a tenth of their entire engineering labor cost on AI compute alone. And that's when the pullback started. An internal memo from a Microsoft executive told engineers to stop using a popular Anthropic coding tool. At first, the official line was about keeping developers inside Microsoft's own ecosystem. Later reporting made clear the real driver was cost. Uber's own chief technology officer admitted the company had burned through its entire year's AI coding budget in just 4 months and was, in his words, back at the drawing board. Even inside NVIDIA, one of the biggest winners of this entire boom, an executive overseeing applied deep learning told reporters something remarkable. For his own team, the cost of compute now runs far beyond the cost of the people on it. Read that sentence again. That's not a critic of AI saying that. That's NVIDIA, the company selling the chips. Think about how strange that is for a second. The company that profits every single time someone buys more compute is the same one publicly admitting the compute costs have outrun the payroll it was supposed to shrink. And Wall Street noticed. Growing concern over the true cost of scaling AI helped trigger a tech stock sell-off, dragging the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq down more than 500 points in a single stretch, as investors started asking a question boardrooms had avoided for 2 years. If this technology costs what the people that replaced used to cost, what exactly did we just buy? Now, before you assume this means AI is suddenly a bad deal everywhere, hold on, because the real picture is more interesting than that, and it matters for anyone running a business. Reuters actually broke it down task by task. In coding, AI still comes out ahead by a wide margin, genuinely cheaper, genuinely faster. In data entry, the gap is nearly closed. It's close to a coin flip. But in call centers and other jobs built almost entirely around live conversation and judgment, actual people are now the cheaper option. That's not AI failing at its job. That's a technology finding its real lane after 2 years of being thrown at every job indiscriminately because the early numbers looked too good to double check. And here's the part that should really get your attention. This price increase we just walked through, brutal as it already feels for finance departments, was only the beginning, because 2 of the biggest names in this entire industry are about to face a kind of pressure that changes everything about how they price their product. Here's something most people don't realize about Anthropic and OpenAI, the 2 companies sitting at the center of every story in this video. Neither one of them is actually profitable yet. Both are operating at a loss, funded for years by billions of dollars in venture capital, patient investors willing to subsidize the real cost of running these models, while the companies chased growth first and profit later. That patience is about to run out, not because investors gave up on AI, because both companies are getting ready to go public. If you want a metaphor for what's been happening under the hood this whole time, think about the early days of ride-sharing apps or food delivery apps. Remember when a ride across town cost almost nothing? When a meal showed up at your door for a delivery fee that barely covered the gas? That wasn't the real cost of the service. Investors were covering the gap on purpose to win customers and build habits, fully expecting to raise prices once people were hooked and the company needed to actually turn a profit. AI has been running on the exact same playbook. What you've been paying for a token this whole time was never the real number. It was the discounted, investor-subsidized number. As of this month, July 2026, Anthropic has confidentially filed paperwork with U.S. regulators and is reportedly meeting with investors to prepare for a listing as early as October, under a possible ticker ANTH. The company was valued at $965 billion in a funding round back in May. OpenAI filed its own paperwork around the same time, initially eyeing a listing before the end of the year at a valuation approaching $1 trillion. But watching how rocky the market has been for other massive tech debuts, OpenAI's leadership is reportedly now leaning toward pushing that listing into 2027 instead. And that hesitation is worth sitting with for a second, because it tells you something. Elon Musk's SpaceX went public in June of 2026, raising over $85 billion at a valuation north of $1.8 trillion. It looked for a moment like proof that the market had an appetite for these enormous tech listings. But since that debut, the stock has fallen sharply, from a post-IPO high above $225 a share down to around $150. If the biggest, most anticipated tech listing of the year can lose that much value that quickly, it makes sense that OpenAI wants to watch a little longer before jumping in. But here's the part that actually matters for everything we've talked about so far. Going public isn't just a fundraising event, it's a complete change in who these companies answer to. Right now, as private companies, Anthropic and OpenAI can absorb massive losses because their investors are betting on the future, not demanding profit today. The moment they go public, that changes completely. Public shareholders expect quarterly earnings. They expect a path to profitability, in writing, on a schedule. A private company can lose money for years while it builds. A public company gets punished for it every 90 days. So think through the logic with me, because it's not complicated once you see it laid out. These companies are currently selling tokens at prices that don't fully cover what it actually costs to run them. That's only possible because investors have been willing to eat the difference. Once shareholders are watching quarterly numbers, that subsidy has to shrink, and the only lever left to pull is the price you and I pay for every token. Add in everything else stacking on top of that pressure, the component shortages slowing down data center construction that we just talked about, the genuinely massive demand, both real and inflated, that these companies now have to serve, and soon a public market demanding profit on a strict timeline. That's not three separate problems, that's one formula, and it only points in one direction. Token prices are going to keep climbing, probably faster than they already have. Which brings us to the sentence that should genuinely change how you think about the next 12 months. If the cost of running these tools keeps rising the way every signal right now suggests it will, there's going to come a point in plenty of roles where paying a person costs less than paying the machine. I want to be clear about something before we go further. That is not a prediction I'm making up for dramatic effect. It's already happening. So let's look at what's actually happening on the ground inside real companies right now, because this is where the story stops being about spreadsheets and starts being about people walking back through the front door. There's a term for it now. People in the industry are calling them AI boomerangs. Employees who were let go because a company believed AI could fully take over their role, only to be brought back months later because it turned out the AI could only handle part of the job. The numbers behind this trend are bigger than most people expect. Research from the staffing firm Robert Half found that close to a third of companies that eliminated a position primarily because of AI ended up rehiring for that same or very similar role. A separate study from the workforce research firm OrgView found that 39% of business leaders had cut jobs because of AI, and 55% of them later admitted the decision had been a mistake. Let's put faces on those numbers, because a few examples make this a lot more real. Ford Motor Company rehired and promoted more than 350 experienced engineers after its automated quality control systems ran into a problem nobody had planned for. A huge amount of what those veteran engineers knew about the vehicles was never written down anywhere. It lived in their heads, built from years of hands-on experience, and there was simply no data set that could capture it. Ford's vice president of vehicle hardware engineering put it simply, AI is a genuinely great tool, but it's only as good as the information you feed it. The returning engineers have reportedly helped the company save hundreds of millions of dollars by catching issues before they turned into warranty claims and recalls. IBM tried handing its human resources function almost entirely to an AI system. That system handled the vast majority of incoming requests, around 94%, smoothly and quickly. But the remaining 6% involved real ethical judgment, cases the automated system wasn't built to navigate. IBM's response wasn't to abandon AI, it was to triple entry-level hiring across the company. Their head of HR explained it simply: if a company stops investing in entry-level talent now, there's no pipeline to draw from a few years down the road. In Australia, Commonwealth Bank replaced more than 40 customer service employees with an AI voice system. The technology looked clean in a demo. In the real messy world of actual customer calls, frustrated people, unusual requests, situations that don't fit a script, it struggled. The bank reversed course and brought the roles back. And research firm Gartner is projecting that by 2027, at least half of all the companies that cut customer service jobs specifically because of AI will be rehiring for those same kinds of roles. It's worth noticing which roles keep showing up in this rehiring wave. It's rarely the most routine, repetitive tasks. It's mid-level managers, customer success leads, quality assurance specialists, the kind of connective tissue roles that hold a company together through relationships, context, and cross-team communication. Those are exactly the things a model trained on last year's data has never actually experienced. And if you were one of the people caught in that first wave of layoffs, watching your old job get automated, only for the company to quietly repost it 8 months later, I imagine that stings in a very specific way. You weren't wrong about your own value. The company just hadn't finished doing the math yet. Now, here's what I really want you to take from this, because it's easy to hear these stories and walk away thinking AI simply doesn't work. That's not what's happening here, and framing it that way would actually be misleading you. What every one of these companies discovered is something more specific and more useful than AI failed. They discovered where the line actually sits. AI is extraordinary at pattern recognition, at drafting, at processing huge amounts of routine work in seconds. What it still struggles to replace is judgment built from experience, escalation in a genuinely unusual situation, and the kind of institutional memory that never got written down in the first place. That's not a failure of the technology, that's a map. And once you have a map like that, you stop guessing about where AI belongs and you start building something that actually works.
So here's where I want to zoom out, because up to this point, this might sound like a story about AI stumbling. It isn't. It's a story about an entire economy going through the same phase every major technology goes through and coming out the other side smarter for it. Think about it this way. When electricity first reached factories, owners didn't immediately know which machines actually benefited from it and which ones didn't need it at all. There was a messy, expensive, sometimes embarrassing period of trial and error before anyone figured out the right mix. What we've watched over the last 2 years is that exact same period, just compressed into 24 months instead of 25 years because everything moves faster now. And some companies have already found that right mix in public in a way you can actually study. Take Klarna, the payments company. In 2024, its leadership proudly announced that an AI assistant was doing the work of around 700 customer service agents. It was one of the most cited AI success stories anywhere. But over the following year, the company noticed something in its own customer satisfaction data. Quality was slipping on the more complicated, emotionally sensitive cases. So Klarna adjusted. It started rehiring people for that instead of walking the whole thing back. They built a hybrid model on purpose. AI still handles the huge volume of simple, repetitive requests. Actual people handle the conversations that need patience, nuance, and judgment. Customers can even choose to speak to a human directly if that's what they'd prefer. That's not a retreat from AI. That's what a mature relationship with the technology actually looks like. And this correction is already creating something worth paying attention to if you're thinking about where to put your own effort next. New kinds of roles are showing up inside companies that didn't exist 3 years ago. People whose whole job is designing the handoff between the model and the human, deciding exactly which requests should stay automated and which ones need a real person. Building the guardrails that catch the 6% a system like IBM's couldn't handle on its own. That's not a shrinking category of work. It's one of the fastest growing ones in the entire industry right now. Here's a piece of the puzzle that deserves way more attention than it gets, especially after everything we just covered about rising costs. The price per token going up doesn't mean the technology is getting worse at what it does, or that costs only move in one direction. Newer models, more efficient training methods, and smarter engineering, things like routing simple requests to cheaper, lighter models, and saving the most expensive, powerful ones only for genuinely hard problems, have been quietly pushing the cost of any fixed amount of intelligence downward for years. The reason total company bills keep climbing anyway is usage is growing even faster than those efficiency gains. Businesses are simply asking AI to do more, not because a unit of it got more expensive to make. This matters because it means the fix isn't use AI less. The fix is use it on purpose. Companies now building a discipline around this, some call it AI cost management, others just call it good engineering, are learning to track results per dollar spent instead of tokens burned per employee. They're learning to route the boring, high-volume tasks to AI and keep the roles built on relationships, judgment, and institutional memory staffed by people. So if you're watching this and wondering what any of this actually means for you, here's the honest, practical version. If you run a team, stop measuring how much AI your people use and start measuring what it's actually producing for you. If you're building a career, the most valuable thing you can offer right now isn't "I use AI a lot." It's judgment, context. It's about understanding where humans excel and where AI tools truly shine, and how to leverage AI to push past what's already being done. The companies quietly winning this next phase aren't the ones who avoided AI, and they are not the ones who went all in and fired everyone either. They are the ones who figured out, faster than everyone else, exactly where the machine ends and the person begins.
Let's go back to where we started. The AI bill got bigger than the payroll it replaced. That's the sentence that opened this video, and I want you to notice something about it now that you've seen the whole picture. It sounds, at first, like a story about a machine failing. It isn't. It never was. What actually happened is that a number finally got tested against reality. For 2 years, that number lived mostly in slide decks and boardroom projections, dressed up in the confident language of quarterly targets. Then it met the real world, real usage, real hardware shortages, real investors demanding real profit, and real customers on the phone with real, complicated problems. And under that kind of pressure, the truth about cost has a way of finding its own level, whether anyone planned for it or not. We watched a boom built on a promise that felt too good to check carefully. We watched a quiet obsession with usage instead of results dressed up as progress. We watched a hardware shortage collide with that obsession and send prices climbing. We watched 2 of the biggest companies on Earth get ready to answer to shareholders instead of just believers, which changes what they're willing to absorb quietly. And we watched something nobody predicted out loud. Engineers, HR systems, customer service lines, all of it running into the exact same wall. The 6%, the undocumented knowledge, the frustrated customer who doesn't fit the script. Every single time, the fix wasn't removing AI, it was putting a person back next to it in exactly the spot where the model's confidence ran out and someone's judgment had to begin. Remember that number from earlier, the one from MIT, the one that said full automation only actually made sense in about 23% of the jobs it was being used to replace? Every story we walked through today, Ford, IBM, Klarna, is really just that same statistic showing up one company at a time in a way that finally felt real instead of academic. So here's the subtle thing underneath everything we covered today, the part I didn't want to just tell you outright until you'd walked through all of it yourself. This was never really a story about AI versus people. That framing made for a good headline, and it's the reason you clicked. But the actual story, the one hiding underneath, was about what happens when you finally measure something honestly instead of hopefully. Companies didn't discover AI was worthless, they discovered what it was actually worth next to what people are actually worth, and the number, in a lot of cases, landed closer to the middle than anyone on either side wanted to admit. That's not a defeat for AI, and it's not a victory for the people who never trusted it either. It's just the moment the invoice finally matched the job. A few of those engineers at Ford are back at their old desks right now, looking at a diagnostic screen an algorithm built, adding the one piece of knowledge that never made it into any data set.
And somewhere, right now, a finance team is quietly rewriting next year's AI budget, not to spend less, but to spend it on the right seat at the table instead of the loudest one. That's where this leaves us. Not AI losing, not people winning, just the bill finally telling the truth. If this kind of breakdown is useful to you, follow this channel. We walk through stories exactly like this one every single day in this space. And if there's one person or 5 people in your life who need to hear this before their next budget meeting or their next career decision, take 30 seconds and send it to them today. It might be the most useful thing you share with them this week. Leave a comment and make it an honest one, not just a reaction. Tell me where you've actually seen this play out in your own job, your own team, your own industry, whether it's the AI side of this story or the human side. And tell me what you want us to dig into next, because this space is moving fast enough that tomorrow's video is probably already writing itself somewhere right now. I'll see you in the next one.